Hey boys and girls, I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you spent some time with your mom and did some nice things for mom and gave her your card that you wrote last week for writing. This is your writing lesson this week. We're going to continue on with writing notes and letters to people we know. We're going to write some notes to some nurses and some healthcare workers this week. So if you don't know any nurses, that's okay. I can give you a list at the end of people that I know, and you can still write a note and we can send some pictures to them. Before we jump into writing our letters, let's make sure we remember our writing checklist. Even though letters are a little bit less formal and you can be casual when writing your letters, it's still important to write nice and neat and make sure you remember your checklist. So always remember to start with your capital letter at the beginning of your sentences. That helps us keep track of where a new sentence begins. And always remember your finger spacing in between your words so the words don't get smushed together. And don't forget your periods at the end of each sentence. And of course, use your sight word lists if you have them with you to help you spell your words. So what we're going to do this week is write notes to nurses to make them feel appreciated and loved because they are going to work every day to take care of other people. They're putting their own lives at risk just to make sure that they are helping others. So we want to make sure they feel appreciated and that they know we are thinking of them and we are thanking them for everything they are doing. Okay, so I'm going to give you a template if you need it. You don't have to use it. You can just use a plain sheet of paper if that's easier for you. But I do want to give you a template that you can use if you would like to. Okay, so let me give you an example that you may use if you would like to. So here's a template you can use. Remember, if there's dashed words, you just trace them. You do not have to copy them. So for example, right here, the word with the letter D, the capital letter D, says dear. So you can just trace that word right here. I'll show you. D, E, A. It's a little tricky for me on the computer. That says dear, okay? And you don't copy it right here because it's already on the paper. So you're going to start your letter with the word dear because you're addressing the person that you're writing it to. And the way that you do that in a letter or a note is you start it by saying dear and then the person's name. So I'm going to write mine to my friend Emily, and she's a nurse. So I'm going to say, dear nurse. And I'm going to use my lines to write nice and neatly. Dear nurse Emily. And remember, names are always capitalized. Okay, dear nurse Emily. And that's why there was an empty space right here for you to fill their name in. And if you know a nurse in your family, you can write to any nurse that you know. That's totally fine. Or a healthcare worker, someone who works in a hospital, you can fill their name in here. If you don't know one, I'm going to give you a couple names of some people that you can write to, and you can fill their names in right here. Okay, so dear nurse Emily. Down here it says, thank you, because we're going to just say, thank you for all that you do. Or you can write whatever you want to say to them. You can say, I appreciate you, if you want to write some tricky words in there. You can say whatever it is that you want to say. But if you're using this template, it starts off with the words, thank you for. So if you do want to use this, you want to finish this sentence that says, thank you for. So now that I traced my words, I want to think about how I can finish that sentence. Because if I just started writing, I appreciate you, that doesn't really make sense with that sentence. Because it wouldn't really make sense to say, dear nurse Emily, thank you for, I appreciate you. That doesn't really make sense. So I need to read my sentence over and think about what would make sense to finish that sentence. So how about, dear nurse Emily, thank you for helping people. How about that? So helping people. So there's help, and then remember ing Ing is the 3 letters I, N, G. Helping. And then remember on our checklist, before I write people, I need a finger space so I can put my finger down on the paper, start my next word. People is a tricky word. I know the beginning sound would be a P, E, and then there's a tricky sound in there. There's actually an O in the word people. You don't hear that though. P, O, and then we have that silent E that we learned about just before leaving school. Let me read you my note. Dear Nurse Emily, thank you for helping people. Now I'm finished. I'm done writing. What is on our checklist that we can't forget at the end of a sentence? What do I need? Punctuation. Good. We need a period. Even though it's a note and we're just kind of talking to somebody and being casual, we still need our punctuation. So I'm trying to make mine pretty big so you can see it. You don't have to do, on paper, you don't need a huge circle. You can just do a little one, but it needs to be able to be seen. Okay? And now down here, this really long word, it starts with an S. It says sincerely. Can you all say that? Say sincerely. Say it again. Say sincerely. That's just a really long word that means from. So we normally sign our notes from. So I would say from Miss Fuller. This is a big word and it's a fancy word. It just means from. So this is another way of saying from Miss Fuller. So this is saying sincerely, Miss Fuller. It just means nicely, kindly from Miss Fuller. So sincerely, it means from the heart. Sincerely, and this is a comma. And then this last line at the very bottom is where you write your name. Remember, that's different in a note and in a letter because when you get a paper in school, you're used to writing your name up here at the top. And that is what's majorly different about a note because we don't do that. That's where you address it. That is where you are writing who you're writing to. Your name goes down here. So this is where you say who it's from. Sincerely, Miss Fuller. Okay, mine is a little sloppy on the computer. All right, so now I can read my whole note. Dear Nurse Emily, thank you for helping people. Sincerely, Miss Fuller. And if you're writing on a plain piece of paper, you can write it as long as you want. You can even write on the back. You can write whatever you want to write. All right? Again, we're writing to the nurses to make sure we're saying thank you. We could be using words like brave or kind or helpful, caring. These are all words you could be using in your letters. Last week was Nurses Week. You could even say that. You could say Happy Nurses Week. Whatever you want to write just to show your appreciation and how thankful you are to have nurses in our world taking care of people. They will love to read your writing, and I will definitely send pictures along to them. You could even mail your writing if you want to do that, or just give it to the nurses if you have nurses in your family. I'm sure they will love to read them. I know I loved reading your notes, to the ones that you wrote to me. I'm sure your moms loved reading the notes that you wrote to them. So I know the nurses are going to love to read your writing. If you don't know any nurses, here are a couple nurses who I know would love to read some notes. There's Nurse Emily, Annie, Jackie, who are some of my friends, and Nurse Cherie is Miss Deborah's sister from Miss Lewis's class. No matter who you choose, I know they're going to love to read your writing. Have a great week, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.